So our guest today is Lisa Khan. Lisa's an immigration lawyer, and I went and did some digging. I've known her for a little while in the circuit of friends. She wasn't involved in our case. I think that we are going to be seeing her about our citizenship, but my husband's used her professionally.
Okay.
Obviously, she's a lawyer, so I have her up on this big pedestal, and or in a little bit intimidated.
Yes.
She's a very strong character, very strong woman, surrounded by many women. She has lots of women friends and enjoys female company. I want to find out her story about where it comes from. She recently lost her mum, actually, Kathleen, and I think that was a process that they knew they were coming to that point. But so we'll touch about her mum. I want to know where the lawyer comes from. I found out she lived in New Zealand for a little while, which I didn't
that's
know.
fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. She's got 2 beautiful children, a wonderful husband, very sociable, and she's an advocate for Down syndrome. Recently taken up pickleball, like the rest of the world.
Yes.
And and what kind of questions do you think you might ask someone that's a lawyer and especially working in immigration?
I'm fascinated by that process. It seems to be a bigger need in the last, I don't know, it's been a while now, but a few years than it ever used to be, I feel like.
Did it get more complicated?
I think it got more complicated, and I think more people need the help for it.
Yeah.
Because more people, would like to come to the United States. And I just think I would love to hear how she got into it.
Yeah, I'm interested to know how it's changed, what's changed, does it change for the better or for worse? And hopefully we can give some people some direction if they need help about their permanent status or, the best route to travel, or routes as you put it, to travel and to be in the United States. So I'm interested in Lisa and her career and how she got to where she is, but also how she can help people that are interested in being permanent residents in the USA.
Yes, I love that. Can't wait to meet her.
Hello and welcome. My name's Carey Sheffield, photographer and CEO of my own successful business. I'm also the host of She Networks, a great believer in lifting up women and loyal supporter to those that are around me. We are all surrounded by incredible women who are breaking the molds in this thing called life. Behind every successful online persona is a real person facing struggles, failures, and living real life stories that don't always have happy endings. We will have an honest conversation, dispel this myth of perfection, and find out what they consider a success, how they achieved it, and learn what they are still reaching for. You are not alone. Join the conversation.
So I want to welcome Lisa Khan. Thank you for coming along. Immigration lawyer, and owner of your immigration lawyer. Did I say, was that the right term?
That's right.
And
yes.
is it immigration is what you deal with predominantly? Do you do any other law?
Just immigration.
Immigration lawyer and owner of your own practice.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Now, how long have you had your own practice?
I've had my own practice since 2003. When my son was born, I decided to go off on my own. So it's now been 21 years of my own practice and practicing immigration law since 1997.
Wow.
So I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah. And so take us back then to a little bit. How did that come about? Do you come from a family of lawyers, or was it just something that... So when did you decide that that's what you wanted to be?
Well, I think in college, interestingly enough, I was studying business, and I thought, I'm going to go into corporate America, and I'm going to be a female CEO or something like that.
Well, you've got that energy, and when I think of you, I know how personable you are and how sociable you are, and when I say you can be intimidating, it's not in she's a scary person, but you're strong, you're a force. The first time I met you was at Windermere Prep, and we were doing, and I felt so underqualified because we were talking, what was that thing? We were just introducing our businesses to kids. It was
like a career day.
It was a career day, that's
okay.
it. And I'm thinking, I don't have a career next to this lady.
Gosh,
she's a lawyer.
no.
But I think it's still one of those vocations in life, professions that still not everyone can do it. And there's a pedestal there, rightly so.
Well, that's kind. I don't ever like to be intimidating, and I'm tall, almost 6 feet. And
So
I remember
that's it.
when
Tall,
I was,
big
I think the
career.
tall will sometimes get you. And then I suppose if you're confident to a certain degree, that may be intimidating to some. But
When I say the word intimidating, not disparagingly,
Right.
it's almost like it's an aspirational intimidation.
Okay.
It's like looking up to a person. I
Yeah.
mean, I look up to you in both ways, but you know what?
that's sweet. That's sweet.
But which is great. So
Yeah.
so you were doing business.
So I was doing business, and then, frankly, I what, 18, 19, I really didn't feel that I knew much about what was going on in the world. So I thought, I'm going to take a political science, world affairs course. And I did. And I just found it fascinating. So I started taking more and more political science classes. So I ended up doing a double major in law, or political science and business. But that kind of sowed the seeds then for going into law school, which I think is not unusual. A lot of political science majors will go into law school. And even at that time, I thought, well, I'd really like to do something with an international flavor, but I didn't quite know what that would be. And I thought maybe foreign service or consular work. Went to law school, and then toward the end of law school, I met an immigration attorney, but I didn't really know what that was. My family didn't immigrate to the U.S., and I grew up in the Midwest, and didn't really know what that was, but I thought it sounded very interesting. So that just sort of, I tucked that in the back of my mind. And then when I graduated from law school, frankly, I just wanted a job, student loans. So I ended up taking the first job that came along, which was commercial litigation. And I absolutely hated it. I did that for about 9 months, and I don't really like to fight. I don't like conflict, and I felt like, I didn't have a litigator's personality. So I thought I've made a huge mistake going to law school. But I just said, okay, let's do some soul searching. And I really sort of did a lot of soul searching about what, would be of interest to me. And I kind of was going back to this idea of immigration, reached out to several immigration attorneys, and a couple of them, came back to me and said, come shadow me for the day, or come meet with me and we'll do like an information interview, and you can just kind of pick my brain about what I do. And that led to my first job in immigration.
Wow.
And I've been in it ever since.
Well, we're going to go back a little bit to your education, because it's so interesting. I'm listening to you talk. So my son was doing political science, and he was thinking about going on to do law, and he wanted originally to go to Georgetown.
Okay.
But
I looked at Georgetown. I don't think I got in.
No, he was waitlisted, and he did a summer at Georgetown. We were trying to get him there. But then he changed to directing, but he's minoring in political science.
Oh,
but
wow.
he's at Michigan, which is where you went and got your degree.
Yes.
But what I want to talk about is you went to University of Auckland.
I did for 1 year.
I know,
Yes.
and that's incredible. So how old were you? You were like 19?
So I had just graduated. Well, when I was in college, I had always wanted to do an abroad program,
and
study
that's in
abroad.
New Zealand, for those of you.
Right,
Yes.
Auckland's
Yeah.
New Zealand. And it never happened while I was in college. I didn't end up getting to do the French, the abroad with the French students to France or whatnot. And then my dad actually met someone on an airplane who was coming back from overseas and had gotten a Rotary Foundation scholarship. And he told me about it. I looked into it, and I applied when I was a senior in college. And I was like a runner-up. I didn't get it, but I was sort of maybe a runner-up, and it would be for study abroad. And so I was going forward with plans for law school, took the LSAT, and was working at a law firm. And then I got a call that someone had dropped out, and I was going to be going to New Zealand.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. And
I went to New Zealand and lived in Auckland for close to a year, and it was, seasons are reversed there. So I had a little bit of time before I was able to go. So I worked for a law firm, and then I was there in 1990 and lived in Auckland.
How was it? What was the experience like? Yeah.
It was an amazing experience because I had not lived overseas, and I did it on my own. I went to a very small liberal arts Christian college for my undergrad, so I felt like it was a little bit sheltered.
But New Zealand is quite sheltered. I've been led to believe
it's
in
a
lots
small
of places.
country.
Yeah, but there's a lot of photographers from Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
Funnily enough, and they're quite high profile. But a lot of the New Zealand photographers hopped over and went to Australia.
Sure, it's so small.
But actually, you look it up. There's an incredible amount of really amazing photographers come out of New Zealand.
Very interesting.
Maybe it's because they're surrounded by all this beauty.
Could be. It's so
but
pretty.
they do live very, I want to use the right word, you're a more intelligent woman than me, but backwards not the word, it's just slower pace.
Yes,
and just, yes,
for sure.
Yeah, it's like
Definitely.
going back, you probably felt you went back 10 years when you...
Yeah, I absolutely. I had gone to a small college, and so going overseas by myself was, I think, fabulous for me, because my undergraduate experience wasn't as, I think, maybe expansive as most people might have going away to college.
Yeah.
So that year was fantastic for me. But New Zealand is a very small country that's quite isolated and
Yes.
a little bit backward then. So
Yeah.
I remember going from college where we were typing on a computer
Yes.
all of our term papers or
Yes.
whatnot. And in New Zealand, we were handwriting them.
Wow.
And I was like, nobody has a computer here.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more backward, but it was a slower pace. It was a great experience for me. I met people from New Zealand, obviously. I took classes at the University of Auckland, but I was really there as part of a Rotary Foundation scholarship, and the idea behind that was to bridge international understanding. So I spoke at different Rotary clubs and
I think
different
Matthew
locations.
McConaughey did that.
Maybe.
In his book, I'm sure it was a...
I have his book, and I haven't
Yes.
read it yet.
Well, listen to it, because
Okay.
Matthew McConaughey talking
Yeah,
through his
right.
book is an experience you don't want to miss. And I
Okay.
listened to it on a road trip.
Well, his voice, yeah.
Yes. I mean, and just how he tells it. But
Okay.
I think he went to Australia on a Rotary
Interesting.
scholarship.
Okay.
And I could have my wires crossed. He definitely went over there on some sort of internship and had to go and live with a family. Did you find yourself living
I
with
did.
a family?
Well, briefly.
His family were a bit crazy. So it was interesting. Where the mother was and the brother, one of the kids. But it's a good story.
Yeah.
So definitely listen to that.
I had a host family. I lived with them for a few
Yes.
weeks, and then I ended up living in like university housing, and it was a little flat, and that was very interesting. Somehow I
Yes.
ended up in a flat where we all had a small bedroom, 2 shared bathrooms, common area, and there was somebody from Wales, someone from Germany, someone from Pakistan, someone from Indonesia, someone from Sweden, me, one from New Zealand. So
Yeah.
I felt like I had quite an experience there.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's
So
really cool.
you did your year there and you came back. Did you go on to Michigan after Auckland?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had a little period in between again because of that, the reverse seasons over there in the school
And
year
then you
there.
went to the coldest place on earth and you went to
to
Michigan.
Michigan, right?
Yeah.
But I had grown up in Michigan.
Oh, okay. Is that where you're from?
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a Midwest girl, really, at heart.
Yes, yeah.
Had grown up in Michigan. My family was there. I didn't really come from, neither of my parents were lawyers, but my dad's sister went to Michigan for law school. So I guess we had one other attorney in the family. And then when I came back from New Zealand, I worked for a law firm until school started, and then I went to University of Michigan for law school. And Ann Arbor's a great town, but it is cold.
Cold and expensive now.
I wouldn't want to go back.
No.
I'm
No,
really
no.
happy in Florida.
Stuart's definitely feeling it. So at that time, I mean, I imagine, and when we talk about the 90s, we think it was like 10 years ago, but it wasn't. How was it for you being a female in...
I feel like in law school, it was very equal. So I never felt, that I was paving the way for women in law school. It had already been done, before me. Coming out of law school, the first job that I had was commercial litigation. It was a very small firm of men. I just wasn't happy there. I didn't really like the work. But I never really had a sense that I wasn't accepted.
Right.
And then quickly I went into immigration, and I worked for a female immigration attorney.
okay.
And so, she was my mentor.
But
and
it
my
must have been an
role
entirely
model.
different experience and energy, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. The attorneys that I worked with in the litigation area, I was unhappy. In fact,
Did you feel that you weren't doing the type of work, and obviously you're working on the same
Yeah.
cases, but do you feel like they were condescending in their work? Oh, no, I mean, I'm not that I'm
I
trying
was
to
very
plant
green,
that seed.
so I didn't really know much.
So you were a beginner anyway. but yeah.
So there was that. One was quite a bit older, and I think a little bit condescending in general
Right.
to everybody in the office, including
Right.
the support staff. So yeah, that didn't make for the best environment, and I didn't like the work
And
either.
Not a great place to start. And
Not a
learn.
great place to start, which is why I kind of had a crisis of, did I make a huge mistake going to law school? And I need to figure out a path. And then I thankfully had left there. and then really did that soul searching, and then started to explore the idea of immigration, and landed in the immigration field with a fabulous attorney and mentor. Her name was Judith Cooper, and this was in Houston at that time.
Okay. Oh, wow, you traveled around then.
I bumped around a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
Graduated from law school, and then I felt like Elizabeth Taylor for a little while because I had all these relationships that took me different places. I had fallen in love,
Oh, I love
moved
that.
to Seattle.
That's a whole new
Right, it's a whole other side of me.
Yeah, that's a whole different podcast. I think we had this conversation one time.
Maybe.
When we were talking about your husband and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's great. I think that to do what you do and to meet the people you meet and have an understanding and have empathy and have a good
Right.
relationship, I don't think you can do that if you've lived a closeted life.
Yes.
I think you need
agree.
to travel to appreciate people that live in other countries.
Right.
I think if you've never left the USA per se, it's almost like everyone else outside of the country are aliens. You do have they're just people.
True.
We're all just the same.
Absolutely.
If we just, whatever color we are on the inside, we're all just the same. I mean, that's it. It's just cosmetics.
Absolutely. I
So,
100%
yes.
agree.
And so you have a better, I think you're probably born and you've been well raised, so you have a good nature with people. You're not going to treat them poorly. You're not going to be condescending. But yes, when you traveled, I think it definitely broadens your.
I think so too, and that's been something that has been super important for my husband and I to impart to our children. We've traveled to at least, I think, 30 countries with them over the years, and I feel like that's really important for them to see.
Yeah,
other
and there's a
cultures.
culture. There's two different cultures in your family too.
Yeah, so I'm married. My husband is originally from Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
so we're, I guess, a cultural family.
Yeah. Which
So I
is
think
great, and I know that was it last year I saw you travel to a wedding and seeing you guys.
Yes.
Was it just you and your daughter went to the wedding?
No,
or
it
did
was
you all go?
actually my husband and my,
Oh, okay.
my
I just
children
remember
and
seeing the
I,
beautiful
and
pictures of
we
Amber
went to
as well.
an incredible wedding of our
Yes.
niece in
Right.
Lahore in Pakistan, which was amazing.
But I think that's wonderful that that you do what you do, and simultaneously you have a multicultural family and you're educating them.
I think it helps a little bit, and I think clients maybe feel that I get it a little bit with some of the, another culture, another upbringing. I think the longer you've lived life and the more you experience, the more you can connect with people on so many levels.
Yeah,
I had relationships that were bad relationships, and that helps me to understand somebody who comes to my office that maybe is married to a U.S. citizen and is being abused in the marriage, and we're able to file for a green card that way, and I can
I
I
hadn't
can
even
empathize
thought
with things
about
like that.
Yeah. I
so-
mean, I could be in that situation, right? I'm married here on a green card. I'm in a good situation, but not that it's not crossed my mind. Could I do this on my own? No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Wayne, I'm joking. But yeah, no. And I think that you just take for granted where you are, and then suddenly, if something were to happen, you could be very, very vulnerable.
Yeah, I remember when I was first in my doing immigration, and I really had to kind of start at the bottom, and I wasn't making that much money. I had my student loans, and I was engaged to someone at the time when we were living together, and he had a good income, but it wasn't the right relationship, and I left. And I got my own apartment, and it was pretty humble, and I was just getting by. But it was I remember feeling very empowered in that moment, in that time, that no matter what happens in my life, I'm going to be okay because I can take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that was like one of those little epiphanies where I thought, I'm so grateful that I have a degree and that I can support myself no matter what.
But you can have all of those things and not have self-esteem. Where do you think that comes from? That must be your upbringing. Tell us a little bit, without going back all that way.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how you were raised and how it, you're a very, obviously we don't know each other intimately, but you're a well-rounded individual. This attitude that you have is fantastic. Was that born from college onwards, or do you feel that you were raised to be comfortable and confident in yourself?
I was really fortunate because I was raised in a very loving family, a small family. I was an only child, but my parents had a wonderful marriage.
That only child energy, I love it.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I had a great upbringing, a really loving, wonderful home. Kind of middle class, or maybe upward, or kind of upper middle class. I think my parents were both busy and had careers, and I saw that they were always working hard and doing things that they enjoyed. So maybe that helped inform my work ethic. I also grew up in a very spiritual home, and I feel like that faith in God and kind of in our purpose and plan on earth was a seed that was planted very early on. And I think that's helped me throughout life to have a certain sense of security or peace that I think a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And I feel really grateful for that.
No, that's lovely.
Now I don't consider myself a religious person, but I feel that I'm a very spiritual person, and I think a lot of that is the way that I was raised.
Yeah, and I think religion and spirituality are two very different things. And
I agree.
I think I need to find my path back to a home that I can call my spiritual home that I don't have right now. But no, it definitely didn't leave me either.
Yeah.
And in the best and the worst times, you find yourself going back to everything that you fundamentally believe in, don't you? And
Sure.
We always reach to the spirits when we need lifting or
Right.
we want to thank our blessings.
Yeah.
I know that you recently lost your mum. I'm
I
sorry
did.
about that. So was
Thank
your dad?
you.
Did your dad pass before?
My dad did. So my dad passed. 94 was kind of a seminal
I think
year
so. I
for me.
read-
We might have
yes.
talked
Oh my
about
gosh.
it. I had graduated from law school, gotten divorced. I had gotten married and divorced in 1 year of law school. And then lost my dad in a car accident that I was in with my mom.
Oh,
so
my
it was pretty
goodness.
traumatic,
Yes.
and unexpected. He was 49, so quite young, and loved my mom's life, and we were a very close family. So that was difficult. But it was also, when I look back, a year that I had tremendous personal growth and probably spiritual growth. So, with all things in life, I feel that there's value in it all, even in things that seem tragic. You grow, you move forward, and you learn from everything. So I had lost my dad quite young, and then since then, I've always maintained a very close relationship with my mom.
Yeah, Kathleen. Yeah.
Yes, and she passed just this last Christmas.
Yes,
But she was a wonderful, like a role model of somebody who is always upbeat, positive, always looking on the bright side, really non-judgmental. She would tell me, honey, it's up to you. You can have a happy day or a crappy day, and it's your choice.
Oh my gosh! I
And
think I said
little
something
words of
similar to
wisdom.
my daughter recently, and it's not because I'm as gifted as your mum Kathleen was. I think that I've been trying to find healing things for myself, and I'm listening to all this stuff, and it's what you think.
So much is
what
in
you'll
our
manifest.
mind,
Yes,
right? We have
yes.
so much. The mind is so powerful, and it's so easy to go down different paths mentally,
Yes,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, I wanted to touch on about her just to, because
Oh,
it was
thank
recent,
you. I
and,
appreciate
just
that.
to
Yeah.
recognise it. But so you went to work for this incredible immigration lawyer.
Yes.
Tell me about immigration in that time in America.
Okay.
And what I want to know, what has changed. I have seen a massive change just from the very first time my husband was asked to come, which was around 2011. For us to come from the UK, and I know it depends on what country you're coming from, for us that 2011 to come to here, it was quite easy. There was no lottery in that time. And it wasn't until, it was still visas, there were still processes, and etc. But by the time we actually did come in 2015, the numbers had gone from like 83,000 people from the UK to at that particular visa to 280,000. Suddenly, our application was a lottery. So I see that even just a short space of time, the process can change. Your life must be constantly evolving. You must have to stay on top of everything all the time. So what's been the dips and trends and changes that you've seen?
Sure. So I started immigration law in 97, and I do primarily business immigration and family immigration. So the areas that I really don't practice in would be the deportation, the removal, the asylum, that sort of work. That tends to be the immigration court
political
stuff.
kind of,
And then I do what we would call the benefit side, the naturalization, the green cards, the cases
Which
for...
is what I would have, yeah.
The way that you would have come over through employment, investment, that sort of work. So interestingly enough, in all the time that I've been practicing, the actual immigration system and structure and the regulations and the rules are largely the same. We're largely dealing with the same sort of work-related visas, the same path to a green card that we have been since I started, with changes along the way, tweaks along the way. But it is very interesting to me because in many regards, the system is outdated and antiquated.
I was gonna say,
and
is
really
that-
needs
yes,
some
yeah.
reform, but nobody wants to touch it. It's
Right.
just too, it's just becomes such a contentious and hot hot button political issue. I've seen a lot of changes depending upon, what's going on in the world, like 9/11 was a big change for immigration, particularly, for people from Middle Eastern or Muslim countries, much greater scrutiny, security clearances, changes in the student visa system that tightened up, which we probably needed.
So I imagine. Yeah.
And then sometimes I see more processing changes and maybe adjudication standards change where the rules are the same, but the standards fluctuate sometimes. So for a while there was a feeling that immigration was looking to say no. It was like a culture of no, where it felt like everything we were doing was a fight. And it might, be an H-1B specialty occupation worker for an engineer working for an engineering company, which would seem fairly straightforward, but it felt like immigration was just picking and
It took 4
needling.
attempts for us.
It is not for the faint of heart.
And it wasn't,
truly.
and actually the work was being done. So for people to understand a little bit, and not to talk really about on my case, but just if you don't have an understanding from my side of the fence, the very first time, and it was almost like building a house. He was on a specialist visa, H-1B.
Okay.
And I came over just as a nobody on his visa.
Dependent
spouse.
yes.
All I could do was I could write a book. I couldn't volunteer,
Yeah.
or I could go into education. I think they were you could correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember when we had to go for our interview, my husband told me not to speak. Well, you know me, so you know why he told me not to speak. But the first time they applied, there was stuff going on within the company, and it was a company application. You've worked with Tavistock. They didn't post the physical document on the 1st of April or whatever.
Right.
And so then it just couldn't happen. The lawyer's like, well, you didn't do the thing that you're supposed to do, so
Yeah,
it's not
it
happening.
can come down to something very small.
Yeah, it was like that. And then the second time, there was some illness within the family, not our family, but the Lewis family. So they just didn't have the energy for it. But this is what happens. Both the first 2 times we've been over, or I had to come on my own to look at property because he wasn't allowed to travel once the application was in. And I was trying to convince our daughter Alex it was a good thing when they're 13, they really don't want to move. Yeah. And I kind of started to shut down my business. I was pretty successful over there and shut it all down. And then you just get this phone call and it's not happening anymore. Yeah. And so the third time, which was maybe a year or 2 years later, I was like, call me when it's done. I'm just not interested. Yeah. I'm not stopping anything. And so the application went in we knew it was happening the 1st of April. He wasn't hearing anything until like the 1st of June. And by this time, our application became a lottery. So they pushed him to the top of the pile and they paid for that. But he was still going to go in a bin and be picked out. Right. So we got there. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. And I just said, I can't put my life on hold anymore because you do literally live in limbo.
Right, yeah.
And we were in a privileged situation that it wasn't life or death. We didn't have family here. I'm not separated from anyone. And I understand that this is where it gets much more complicated.
It's very difficult. And I think the average American has no idea how hard it is.
And expensive it can be.
Inexpensive
we were being
well.
Sponsored. Were we not being sponsored to be here, we would not be here. The process between the application, the multiple applications, and then getting a green card, which was relatively pain-free, although it's terrifying at the same time. I mean, the physical test, the medical test. We went to our interview so suited and booted. The guy, and you probably know him, and he was a really cool dude with lots of jewelry and lots of surf pictures in his office. You probably know who he is. And our lawyer kind of said, I hope you don't get this one. I hope you get this one. And he said, we were the best dressed family we'd ever seen.
I'm not surprised.
And my daughter said to me that I looked like the stepmom of a Stepford family. They were in their Windermere prep uniforms.
Right.
So we were terrified.
Yes.
So when we got it, and now we're about to do and we need to talk to you, but we want to do our citizenship. For the kids. They want it.
Great.
Really bad. But it was, I feel like for the first 6 years of being here, we were walking on eggshells, terrified to exist.
It's a lot. It's an emotional process.
And we went through a really difficult political period, as you know.
Yes.
And so we felt even more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with that. Do you feel
a lot, and sometimes when I have a case like that, you naturally feel the the same feelings that the client's going through, and it can be very heavy because I feel like, oh, I've got somebody's, life at stake, and not their physical life like a surgeon, but the ability to live in the U.S., the ability to be with their family, the ability to take up a great job opportunity. So it can feel very heavy, and I can feel that pressure.
And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you go home at night and not carry that as a burden?
I've tried to let things go a little bit more, so I don't take it. I try to release it and not obsess about things after work. I think the first few years of practice, I was excited about what I was doing. I could see how it was benefiting people, changing lives, and there's a lot of rewards. But I would dream about it all the time, and I had a hard time letting go. And over the years, I've learned to try to keep work at work as best as I can. Try to stay off my emails, but it's still hard.
Yes.
And then I think now I've gotten to a point where I realize that the work-life balance is elusive because it's never in balance.
Well, you're running your own business. You are everything in your business. You're not on a payroll, like, as such. You're not.
Yeah.
And we never got to the point. When did you open your practice as opposed to working for people?
2003.
Right.
So I
it's
was
been a long
working.
time. So you quickly became independent.
Yeah, I worked for the attorney in Houston for about 4 years, met my husband there.
Yeah.
We moved to Orlando in 2001, in large part because my mom was here, and we decided if we were going to have 2 careers and a family, we'd like to be near a parent. So we moved to Orlando, and then I started working with a firm downtown. But that was interesting because they needed an immigration attorney to round out their practice. So I was kind of like having my own firm within a firm setting, since I was the only immigration lawyer. And I stayed there for a few years. And then after my son was born, I decided, you know what, I think I can do this on my own. And maybe I kind of worked the numbers and realized it was making more sense for me not to be paying them a certain percentage of everything that was coming in, and then went off on my own. I never thought I'd be a sole practitioner or have my own practice when I was in law school. It wasn't my dream. I thought, well, I might work for a big firm. But, life takes you down certain paths. And now I feel like I wouldn't have it any other way. I really love being my own boss and being self-employed. It comes with that stress of being the boss, though. You know how that is when it falls on your shoulders. But
like you said, and you're dealing with highly volatile, emotional, and it is life and death. And don't underestimate that. I understand, saying not a brain surgeon, but these are people's lives, and it can make people sick. And
I heard a term recently, compassion fatigue, and I hadn't heard that. And I think a lot of different professions can go through that, but that really resonated with me because I feel like I'm a very empathetic person. I really care about the clients. I care about every case, and I want a good outcome for everyone. But you can have that fatigue by taking all of that on. Yeah. I think I get a little recharge now by travel. We always have some upcoming trip, and that, fills my cup. Family life. I have a wonderful family and a wonderful husband. Social. I'm pretty social. I do a lot of social things.
You have lots of girlfriends, and you have a very strong network. When you do podcasts, you go and stalk people online and find out what's going on, just so you can, get a little idea of the world that they put out anyway. And you're surrounded by a bunch of colourful friends often.
And I think that's a great diversion. Yeah. I think the power of female friendships is not to be undervalued because it really is, it's a stress release, and it's an opportunity to share our experiences. And I think when I was first married and starting my career, I thought, family first, career, and maybe friends were kind of at the bottom. Yes. But I realized friends are really important, I think. Yeah. And then I started playing pickleball about a year and a half ago, so I finally getting some exercise. I've been waiting all my life to find that sport that I enjoy.
Although I'd love to see you playing tennis and be that one at the net, because you terrify anyone turning up at the tennis court. If you see someone playing a backhand at the net and they're super tall, you're like,
people get nervous.
We're screwed. I
played a little tennis, but I could never get throwing the serve right.
And it takes a lot of time, though, and you're a busy woman, so it's finding that balance.
Yeah.
In terms of the cases that you deal with in immigration, do you have and actually we'll get to this in a second too. I just want to understand, what should people be doing? How can they help themselves? And, how complicated is it nowadays for people to come and move to America? And is it so complicated from country to country still?
Good question. So I think I always feel if someone is considering the idea of moving to the US or wants to know how to do it, I think it's so important to get good advice, because there's bad advice out there, and there's attorneys that have really made a mess of someone's situation. So I think it's really good to get advice. I think sometimes people, want to have free advice, but my advice is that pay $100, $250, $300 for a consultation with a good attorney, because that is probably the most important hour or so that you're going to spend in planning that future. I don't think, much like maybe taxes, I don't feel like I would be great at preparing my own taxes or doing it well. So I'd, leave that to the experts. I think similar with immigration, you can make mistakes that can have serious consequences. And it can be something as simple as, ticking the wrong box on a form or sending an application to the wrong place or missing a deadline. Silly things like that can derail it. So I don't think it's a great idea for people to go it alone, unless there are certain types of applications that are easier than others. And some I would say, you could, if you're pretty detail oriented and can, really follow instructions, there are a couple types of applications I'd say you're probably okay on your own.
Are you in a saturated marketplace? Because Florida seems to be, especially for Brazilian people and people coming from from like Colombia, Venezuela. Yeah, there seems to be a huge Hispanic
we have
culture.
a pretty diverse population in Orlando. And when I first moved here in 2001, I was a little bit worried about, is Orlando diverse enough for me to sustain an immigration practice? But it's become increasingly international over the years. I have a little bit of a niche in, there's a type of non-immigrant visa called an E2 treaty investor visa, and I do a lot of those. And I do a lot of those for British folks.
And what is that?
It's a temporary visa, so it's not a green card. A green card is permanent residence in the U.S., and you have to have permanent residence before generally you can become a citizen, unless you derive it
for
through
6 years. I think we could apply after
5 if
Is
you
it
got
5?
your green card through employment.
Right.
Yeah. If you're married to a U.S. citizen and living in marital union, then it's 3.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought now.
Yeah, we were talking about the E2 treaty.
Oh, the E2, right, yes. So that's a non-immigrant visa. It'll get you in the door and allow you to be able to live here, work here, primarily based on investing into a business. And it can be a small business. So it's accessible for a lot of people. It might be somebody that's buying a hair salon, or they're going to start they're going to start a franchise. They're buying into a franchise opportunity, or they're buying a pool cleaning business. Any business.
And there's a minimum and investment amount, isn't there?
So there's no set dollar, but it's got to be a substantial investment relative to the nature and value of the business. So if a business is selling for $150,000, let's say somebody has a floral shop. I know you said you had a floral shop at one time. Let's say someone is selling a florist, and I wouldn't know what they're going for, but let's say it's selling for $150,000. If an investor is paying cash $150,000, that's substantial.
Right. Okay.
If they're paying less than the full purchase price and maybe have a promissory note with the seller, generally 75% or more of the price or the value would be substantial. That visa we have to have a treaty with. So we do have a treaty with the UK. We have a treaty with Canada. We don't have a treaty with India, Venezuela, Brazil, which is tricky for people from those countries. Some of them have dual nationality, though, and sometimes you have a Venezuelan that has an Italian passport, and we do have a treaty with Italy, so they can come in that way.
Wow.
But I tend to do a lot of those visas. So
God, it's so complicated.
it really is complicated, and that's
How do you
just one
sleep?
little visa.
I wonder about how you sleep at night. How do you grow as an individual in your career? Do you feel, tell us where you are right now. Are you in a place where I'm happy in my job and this is what I do? And I know that you do speaker engagements too. Is there somewhere you want to go? Do you have any aspirations career-wise?
Yeah, so I think, when I first started, when I went off on my own, I wanted to build the practice. I was very involved in the American Immigration Lawyers Association called AILA, and I wanted to be on the board. And I was a board member, and then I worked my way up to like the chapter chair, which is the kind of like not the president of the organization, but the highest level.
I understand, yeah.
So that was probably a goal of mine.
Yes.
But
and then you get there
did all
and
that. You
what's
do
next?
all that, and then you're like, okay, I don't really need to do that. That's great too for networking, for building your practice, for referrals. Now I feel like I'm at a point where I almost have more work than I can handle, which is a lovely place to be.
Does that mean growth for you, or is that?
So over the years, my battle has been: do I expand and hire more attorneys so that I can handle more business, or do I keep it small and just, sometimes maybe lose people because they want to come in right away. But I've kept it small because I really enjoy doing the legal work.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm really good at it. And I don't want to farm it out to others, and I don't want to manage staff. That's not really where
That's
my
a separate job in
strength
itself.
lies.
Yeah.
It's also very common that you might hire somebody and then they work for you for 4 years or so, and then they're out the door.
Of course.
And I didn't really want that either. So I feel like even though sometimes I've been a little overwhelmed, I've been able to balance it better by trying to manage my schedule, or just say, we don't have the next appointment is February 25th or something like that. And that's been how I've been able to manage it. I did, I think, suffer a little bit the last couple of years from feeling burned out.
Yeah.
I was really feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can keep doing this. You have all this growth, and then you hit a point where maybe you're not learning as much, but then you start sharing with others and speaking at conferences or maybe mentoring someone. But then you can feel like I've been doing this for so long, and
Do I
it's
still
still a
love
challenge.
this? Am I in love? Yeah,
That's one of the hard things with immigration is sometimes in a career you feel like the more you do it, the easier it gets. But the more I do this, the better I am at it. But
I'm
it doesn't
overwhelmed
make it
just
easier.
thinking about what you do. Like,
It still feels hard when you're
Yes.
dealing with the government. You're dealing with
Yes.
government inefficiencies and delays and political changes and all of that.
Yeah.
But I found somehow I was able to work through that feeling burned out with, I think, trying to balance, not the balance, I didn't like the balance word, but that work-life integration.
Yes.
Putting a priority on travel, putting a priority on social things, and not feeling guilty if I'm taking off on a Friday because I want to go to a function, or I want to spend time with my family, or we're going to have a 3-day weekend somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's really helped me. I think it's made me a better everything.
Better you,
better
better
me,
person.
better
Yeah,
attorney,
absolutely.
probably a better
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah, because when you start to get burdened with overwhelm,
Yeah.
everything suffers.
Right.
Do you have any aspirations? Is there anything that you feel that you haven't done yet?
I think professionally, not so much. I feel like I've been
Fulfilled?
able to speak at our national conferences, and I've been able to I don't want to be on the national AILA Board of Governors. At one point, I thought maybe I'd want to do that, and I thought, well, that's a lot of work. I'll do it when the kids are grown up, but I don't really
And
need
that's
or
my
want
next
to.
thing. When the kids get into that age, you do. Obviously, I've been an empty nester for 2 years, and it's an interesting place to be. You have this little panic attack about your age and where you are and everything, and then I have to slap myself every now and then and say, "Don't be stupid. You're only this age, and it's still no age at all. And there's all
Right.
these things we could go do." I've kind of I want peace, and I don't actually want. There are things that I
Yes.
still want to achieve. And I'm going for it, and I feel braver, and I feel like I've got more headspace to go after things now.
That's great.
But is this something that's on your list that you think I would really love to have a go at this? And it could be completely unrelated to
Right.
Yeah.
It's probably would be
Pickleball
completely unrelated to
champion,
work.
but yeah.
I would probably like to get better at pickleball.
Yes.
And I always want to travel more. And I
Yes.
feel, as you age, you start to feel a little bit like I gotta live life. I think I've done a really good job about living life now and fully in the moment, but I want to continue doing that and doing it as much as I can. I don't want to put anything off. Even say, well, we'll take that trip one day. So we
Yes.
tend not to do that. And sometimes maybe I could be better at saving money because we're spending money on travel. I have a little plaque somewhere and it says travel is the only thing that you spend money on that makes you richer. And I
Yes.
feel like
Yeah,
that.
no,
So I would probably
absolutely.
say, more travel, more time with my husband as the kids are, growing up, and we'll couple of years, and I guess we'll be an empty nester. So I enjoy
Or a free bird.
finding
Someone
that
told
time.
me to call it.
A free bird. I do
Yes.
feel a little freer now.
Yes.
And this is I was very, very, as an only child, very close to my mom. But over the last several years, her mental and physical health was in
Yes,
decline, and
yeah.
it was a big responsibility for me that I couldn't share with siblings. So as sad as I am that she's gone, I'm happy that she's not, having that mental and physical.
Yeah, I read you said I'm at peace
difficulty.
with it.
I'm at peace with
Yes,
it,
yeah.
and in a strange way, it has also freed me a little bit because I didn't. I think this is something for our generation that was unexpected. I knew that I was going to have to juggle parenting, a marriage, and a career because I wanted to have a career.
Yeah.
But it never crossed my mind that I might also be caring for an aging
Yes,
parent.
yeah.
So throw that into the mix over the last few years, and that did feel not a weight, but an extra responsibility that now I don't have.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of a new sense of, wow,
You have time
I've
and
got a little more
space,
time now.
mental headspace.
So I
too.
feel like I'm going
Yeah.
to try to maximize that as best I can.
No, that's fantastic. And yeah, I've lost my train of thought. Now, there's the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, well, you do a lot in the community. You have all your charity events. And I think that there's a whole bunch of people that are great. They're paying it forward in our area, Orlando, Windermere. And one of the things we went along to, and I think it's because you have a mutual friend that's affected, but you're an advocate for Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And was that because of the Tremonti family, or did you already have a kind of connection?
So interestingly, several years ago, my husband said, "Hey, a friend, my poker buddy's wife is involved in the Down syndrome charity,
Yes.
and let's go to the gala to support it." We went to the very small gala, which was at the Pines in Windermere.
Oh, okay,
and it was
yeah.
very small, and it was a lovely night, and it was so special. And I said, I don't know anybody here. Nobody knows about this association, and it's so wonderful. That really should change. I said, but you're not going to do it by having this little party in
Yes,
the where they
In the
had
Pines,
it.
yeah.
And they said, will you help us? And then I said, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said anything.
No, right? Because
so then
yeah,
I said,
yeah.
well, yes, I'll help you. And
Yeah.
so then my husband and I both got involved. He has a brother with Down syndrome, so there was already a connection there.
That's what I wanted to understand. Yeah.
So we really just got involved in the Down Syndrome Association of Central Florida, in large part to help them maybe elevate their fundraising
brand
and elevate
awareness
their
and
gala.
yeah.
So I was involved very much the last few years with my husband in the gala planning and the silent auctions and all of that, and getting the word out. And
Yes, yeah.
boy, I'll tell you, we have such a great network in
Yes,
our community,
we do.
because if you say, hey, I would love everyone to support this, it's just incredible to me how people come forward and support it. I mean, I was blown away by the support. And then it happened to dovetail with our friend
Yes.
Victoria and Mark Tremonti, who had a Down syndrome daughter, Stella. So, and I remember telling her, I said, God works in mysterious ways, because my husband and I got very involved in this. Now you've come along, and I feel like all of us together,
Yes.
can really make a difference. And they've just, made a
because it's-
tremendous impact.
And
in
the
Down
stigma
syndrome
has
community.
really, it's always going to be there. Unfortunately, people are always judgmental. But I remember kids with Down syndrome as a child, and for the most part, they disappeared.
Yeah.
They were
that's definitely changed.
institutionalized and sent away. And my first real, very close relationship with people with Downs were two very close friends. They knew each other, and they were very young, and they both had Downs babies, and they did not know until birth. And they were only in their 30s, early
Okay.
30s. And one of them in particular, she wrote a book called Don't Be Sorry, and that was to the doctors,
Interesting.
because that's how her baby
Right.
was introduced to her, with an apology.
Yes, I'm sorry to tell you, but
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so she completely turned that on its head. And she's become a psychologist, but she had a very successful blog. I sent it to Victoria, and she's written these books, and she tells Oscar's story.
Oh, that's
I
fantastic.
photographed him as a newborn, and both Oscar and this other baby, Rachel's daughter, who's gone on to be in movies and all sorts of things. Yeah, these children are living lives. I remember having a
Absolutely.
conversation, and not to throw her under the bus or anything, but I didn't get tested because I had like the blood test and the nuchal fold test, but I never had amniotic tests, because I
Okay.
said, regardless of the outcome, I'm always going to have this child. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do anything else about it. That was just my belief. That was just how
Sure.
I felt about it. And I didn't want to put anything at risk by having the test. And I remember, this is an older generation, saying to me, but what if there's something wrong? What
Right.
if it's Downs? And I'm like,
yeah.
it was just that attitude. And I think when someone looks at you and looks at your beautiful family, and the same with the Tremonti family or whatever, I think that we have to humanize it. And also, what's the word when you take away the demonizing that's been surrounding any disability?
Right.
Like it's a dirty secret,
Yeah.
or we should be ashamed or whatever. And so I think it's really great. I think it's changing society. We're seeing people with Down syndrome everywhere, in
Yes.
fashion and on the runway and in
Advertising,
movies. And
yep.
yeah, and
Yeah, it's wonderful to
Yes,
see.
yes.
That Down Syndrome Association of Central Florida, one of their big things too is when they find out that there's a family that's expecting a child with Down, they would never call and say, hey, sorry, but here's a resource for you. They approached with congratulations
Yes.
and welcome to the family.
Yes.
And it's,
And
what you
that
said,
gives
it's
me
really changing the
goosebumps.
narrative.
Yeah, because literally these kids were just sent away to live in homes,
Yeah.
and I know with love and help and growth, they can
Right.
grow and be and do everything.
Absolutely.
And they are. I don't want to say it like a collective, but people that have that extra chromosome are very loving and very
Absolutely.
emotional.
So much we could learn
yes,
from
absolutely.
Yeah,
and
that's
no,
great.
so that's going to keep you busy. So you've got that going on.
Yeah, that.
And yeah.
I'm also got involved in Support Our Scholars. I don't know if you've
Yes.
been involved in
Yeah,
that
I was
at all.
just at a meeting on Thursday night.
Okay, that's a great
Yes.
organization too that I discovered recently, and I'm a mentor now for one of the scholars in that.
And you must be an amazing mentor and I wanted to talk
I don't
to
know
you
if I'm an
about,
amazing mentor. She's an amazing scholar,
Really?
so I don't think she needs
but
a lot
they
of
take
mentoring.
on,
I got
they
lucky.
but they take on girls. It's all girls, right?
All girls.
Yes, and they take on girls that are doing very well. They have to
Yeah.
have a certain GPA,
Yeah.
and they're very academic.
Right.
I would like to see them spread their horizons a little bit to people in the arts, because really you have to have some financial support to go down the arts.
Sure.
They don't. So right now they don't support, and listen, I love the organisation and I'm
Yeah.
involved with it, but they don't support people that are drama or music or whatever.
That's interesting. I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Well, I did
Maybe.
sit and have a
Okay.
conversation.
Maybe it is
and
then.
and because having two children in the arts and knowing what it's costing us,
Right.
you can't do that
Yeah.
without people to support you.
Sure.
And I think it will grow. I think it's just they want to give the kids that they have everything and every opportunity. So broadening that scope just makes it's bigger, and it's a whole new avenue to cross.
Right.
But no, certainly what they do. So where is your student at? Where is she studying?
She is at William and Mary
Which is?
on the East Coast of
Oh,
Virginia.
okay, right. And what's she
Don't quote me
studying?
on that.
What is she studying?
She's going pre-med right now.
Oh, okay. So
But
not
has
law.
been not law, no. I
do you
think she'd
think-
make a great immigration lawyer, but I threw that out there. She didn't seem that interested.
But do you think it's a popular choice? Do you see the trends in
Law or
yes,
medicine?
Law.
Oh, I think it is a funny thing, and I remember if someone says, "Oh, I think I'm gonna, I'm graduating. Oh, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna go to law school. Oh, that's wonderful." Then you graduate from law school, and people say, "What do you do?" I'm a lawyer. Oh, geez, another lawyer. I think, well, what
Really?
happened? I found that very marked difference. Everybody's thrilled when a young person is going on to law school, but as soon as you become a lawyer, nobody likes you anymore. I feel that's it's
Well,
an
but I
odd thing.
think, which is crazy. But I think what you do, well, it's very auspicious, and I think it's incredible. And how many years training do you have? Is it like you train as long as a doctor, right?
University degree, which is 4 years typically, and then
But you went on to do your masters, yeah.
3 years for law
Yeah,
school. Yeah.
absolutely.
I think a law is always popular, but I do know, I think you have to find your niche like anything. I think you're going to be great at what you do if you love it. I've got really lucky to find what I love, and I think that helps me be really good at it.
And how did you trip in? I know that you went to work with someone in immigration, somebody introduced it to you. When you're in law school, how many options are there?
So it's really very broad, and nobody. I mean, some people may go in with an idea that I really want to be a real estate attorney or I want to be a criminal defense attorney, but you don't really specialize. It's so very general. So I had, every class under the sun that is required pretty much.
Yeah.
So you don't really, which is why I feel like you get out of law school, you don't really know that much. You know a little bit about all these different areas of law, but I learned about immigration law in working for an immigration attorney. That's where, for me, I felt like that's where the real knowledge, I had that base, but I really learned how to be an immigration attorney by working in that field.
So if you were to sit here and to sell maybe to your next scholar the idea of being a lawyer, how would you sell? What's the pros and cons?
Yeah.
And what would you have done differently if you had a different time again?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if I would have done anything differently. When I was in law school, I wanted to have fun and go to law school, and I did.
I love that little twinkle in your eye when you said that. Tell us about the fun. What was that?
I didn't want to be the law student that spent every night and every weekend in the law library and didn't live life at all.
And I've seen the law library at Michigan.
It's beautiful. Yeah,
It's
lovely.
stunning. That whole quad.
Yeah.
What's that quad called?
It's called the Law Quad.
Yes.
And I lived right there in the Law
But
Quad.
you're like
It's really
the cream
beautiful.
of the crop right over there. It's like being if
It makes you feel smart just being
does.
there.
Not if
you know?
and we walked through on the tour. I was with Stuart, and it started snowing that day, but it's the hush. But I felt like I was on the set of Harry Potter.
Right, it does feel like you could be.
But
for
it's
sure.
such a beautiful,
so beautiful.
spot. It
really
is.
beautiful.
I mean, the
That was
drama
great.
building's not quite as auspicious. It's very modern, the Arthur Miller Theatre and whatever.
Okay.
But and it's on North Camp, But
right.
but yeah, no, it's very. I mean, what a
very
wonderful
pretty.
place to go.
Beautiful
and
place to go to
study.
school.
And was there anyone that you studied with that went on to, because there's a lot of infamous people come out of that.
It's always interesting when I get the alumni magazine to read what people have done, and some I forgot. Some have gone on to clerk for the Supreme Court. Some have gone on to political office. There was one guy who was maybe a year or two different from me, or before or after me, and he was the CEO of a huge company and like a billionaire. And I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I date him? But people have done pretty incredible things, I think.
But so and going back to selling it to somebody, if they're really interested, I mean, so they want to be a lawyer, but they don't know kind of what genre or what track they're going to go down. I mean, looking at all the different options, I know that there are some that are very much academic. You're just pushing pens for want of a better
I think
expression.
if you're interested in law, it's great to be able to shadow an attorney. And if you think, hey, I'd love to do criminal defense, then try to reach out to some criminal defense attorneys. Every attorney was an aspiring law student at one time. So most I think are pretty willing to have someone come and maybe shadow them for the day. I'm usually happy to have someone come and spend a day with me and see what immigration is like. Yeah. I think that's important to be able to do that and to realize that being a lawyer isn't all courtroom drama. Very few lawyers actually are in the courtroom. Some of it can be, very tedious, I think, like, maybe contract or real estate. I think that might drive me, cuckoo.
And the minutiae of just...
A lot of minutiae. There's a lot of lawyers that are unhappy, that get caught up in the student loans, which, that's a big thing too. I would say be really careful with the student loans. I had student loans that took me forever to pay off. And then you can feel, some people feel like I'm on this, I can't get out because I'm making a good income and I've got to pay the loans and I would maybe rather do something else. I do know several people that I went to law school with that went into completely different fields. Yeah. One is a romance author, has done very well. Wow. Another one is a children's book author.
That was from their experience from being at Michigan.
Maybe so, who knows? But a few people have abandoned it altogether.
Wow, which, is kind of sad. But I think that you're so young when you go off to college to absolutely know at that period that that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. What, just to finish us up here, and it's been so lovely talking to you today, what's the thing that you love? If somebody said to you, what have you loved about your job the most? Is there something that you can actually honestly say?
I truly feel that what I love the most is I feel like I've been able to make a difference in people's lives. And it's so wonderful to have that, all those approvals. People are thrilled when they get their investor visa or they become a citizen or they've got the green card. And it's really great to be a part of that process and to be able to make those calls or share that good news. I think the rewards are tremendous. And that, I think, has been the best part of it. And I feel like I'm doing something good, something positive. I'm helping families to be together. I'm helping people to realize the American dream. I'm helping people to move on maybe from a situation and to have a new opportunity in their life. So that, I think, that's what keeps you going. It keeps any immigration attorney going, for sure.
I love your pictures that you post. I think, was it Paula, one of them, the citizenship?
Yes. So there was a period of time when I had a great plan that I didn't stick with because I did feel the political climate was very anti-immigration and that all immigrants, and, I would say yourself included, or my husband, I thought, people think immigration is just a crisis at the border, and it's so much more than that.
And those people, even those people that are in a crisis at the border, were doctors, lawyers, whatever. We weren't all just peasants on the street living in a tent. I think it's so difficult, especially with the way the media portray it, that you see these people living in poverty on a border, and you just assume that they're a drain on society. They used to have an amazing, wonderful, auspicious career,
oftentimes,
and circumstances.
And they have a lot to offer, and the U.S. needs hard-working individuals.
And not just the U.S.
Sure.
I mean, it's a worldwide issue.
Yes, absolutely.
And the UK too.
Yeah, for sure.
But yes, you were saying we posted the pictures. You were going
Oh,
to
right.
continue.
So when I felt like immigration was just really getting such a bad rap, and people didn't realize that immigrants are all around and doing incredible things, I wanted kind of on a weekly basis to profile, kind of a meet Carey Sheffield, and, an immigrant from the UK, and here's her story and her husband's, and just shine a little light on the wonderful things happening just in and around our community. And I did that for a little bit, and I wasn't able to kind of keep it going.
No.
Or I got, you get distracted with life and other things, but maybe I'll do that again because I really did enjoy doing that.
Just give it to someone to do on your behalf, but just
right.
be behind it.
Or maybe not feel the pressure that I have to do this every week and then it becomes a burden.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's nice to see it as a treat. And hopefully we can start with me because I have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and Stuart really wants us to pursue that. He's on the Blumen group and he's a UN ambassador and he does all this stuff. So it's really important.
The great thing too is you can keep your UK and your US passports.
I know,
and
absolutely.
Sometimes people feel like, I don't ever want to let go of that part of me.
No,
but
mine
if you
looks
can
very
keep both,
much like
why
yours.
not?
Honestly, I come from planet Earth, and that's how I see myself.
true.
And so I'm not as tied to it. I know my husband would definitely like to keep them both. I mean, for me, yes, I'll always be very British, but I'm equally happy being a US citizen too. That'd be amazing. We don't plan to go anywhere. And I'm just thankful that there's people like you that can help make this happen for us. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. I've enjoyed this.
I feel like we could talk all day.
I know, we probably could. Philip will be throwing something at me in a minute to get me to wrap up. But thank you. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank
It's
you.
my joy.